And we're good.
Are we live?
We're live.
All right. Well, welcome to episode 8 of Ryan and Kota, Mapping It Out. We have a special guest today, which is my wife and also the CEO of Industry Threadworks.
Hi.
Disney Williams. Yeah. So I think the topic today, I'm super excited to have you on.
Same.
By the way, we didn't rehearse any of this stuff, so it might get a little sparky in here. But the topics for today is working with your spouse and kind of what that entails, like finding the work-life balance, like, you know, whatever that means to you. I know we've struggled with that like quite a bit in the beginning, and we found some things that work for us. So that's kind of what we're going to, dive into.
Fun stuff.
All right, cool. All right. So one thing that I found was really interesting, because I always thought that we were kind of a unique situation where she and I worked together and we were dating for a long time. But I thought that was kind of rare. And I didn't realize until I went to Sean Whalen's Lions Den Live event. And he works with his wife, Saxony, too. And he asked the crowd, it's like, hey, how many of you guys work with your significant other, your spouse? And it was like 60, 70% of the audience. Wow. And I was like, wow, this is this is pretty common. This is more common than I thought it was. And that's why I wanted to kind of bring her on and share some of the lessons learned. But maybe the most important thing that I could start off with is why you're in the position that you're in. Because some people are like, oh, she's the CEO of Industry Threadworks. I thought that was you. Did you just give it to her? And that's couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah. I mean, I wish that was the case, but she's the CEO because she's literally a better CEO for the position and the team that we have than I am. And the way that happened was everybody that we brought onto the team, one of the first things I always tell them is you can have any position you want in the company. You just have to make yourself the right person for the role. And when I started saying that years ago, I never thought that it would be me that would be pushed out of position. But she came up, she was our first, I guess the first employee of the company, aside from me, the first person that came on. And then as we grew, she stepped into the COO position. And then she handled that fantastic. And then as the company grew even more, about 9 months ago, she took over the CEO position, frankly, because she's a better CEO for the team that we have than I am.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how it came to be. I thought at first it was unique, my situation, starting in nursing school and having a passion in chemistry and biology and physiology, and coming into the manufacturing side of things. But actually, since we've gotten to more of these entrepreneur groups and met with more people, I'm actually seeing a lot of couples, one of the two that are not in the business, actually transition from their career into being a partner. So I think it's pretty cool to see the evolution of modern entrepreneurism changing. And it's not just a solo venture these days. It's actually more of a fruitful undertaking when you have your partner with you invested in it.
Well, I think also, too, whether we work together or not, I think it's like who you spend your time with and your significant other or who you marry is the most important business partnership you'll ever make. Because it's really, really hard to build something of size and substantial if you have a partner who you come home and they don't understand it. They don't appreciate it. They start to resent the time that it takes to build something. So if you can have somebody who really like is in your corner, whether they work with you or not, but just having a support system of somebody who understands what you're going through and supports that is a huge, huge asset for any entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what was happening was when I was in clinicals in school, you were at the print shop and I'd come home and be like, okay, I get to spend time, with Ryan. And then he's not there. And I'm like, well, where the hell is he?
And then she started to resent the business.
Yeah, and then I texted him and he's like, I'm at the print shop. I'm like, why the hell are you at some stinking print shop? You should be here with me.
Yeah, I just picked it up at like 4:35 in the morning and go to the print shop and do approvals.
We never saw each other. It was really rough.
And then go to my day job and then, working at night. And then she was going through nursing school at the time, trying to get into nursing school and then going to nursing school. That's probably let's talk about that, like why you decided to leave nursing school and pursue like working with me at Industry.
Yeah, just a disclaimer with nursing school, I feel like I want to put a disclaimer out there. I think I didn't do the research into what the career actually entailed before I signed up for it. I love the coursework and it turned out I didn't like the program at all. But what was interesting was during the actual clinicals where I'm at the hospital and I'm shadowing a nurse and I'm a nursing student there, I didn't have autonomy in almost anything. And I understand as a student and you're starting your clinicals and you're in your first semester of school, you're not supposed to have autonomy in anything. But there's also a lot of things that are regimented because you are dealing with people's lives. So there is a certain inherent limit to the freedoms that you can invoke on your patient's health. But it got to the points where I couldn't advocate for the medications they were on when I knew they hadn't eaten anything for over 14 hours. Mm-hmm. It was the combination of medications. I knew there were some minor contraindications, but I couldn't talk to anyone about it and learn, the hospital was understaffed, people were stressed, and I get that. Work is work sometimes. But for me, I needed to have a little bit of freedom. So in between, nursing school and then working at the restaurant, and Ryan having his GS position still.
Yeah, I was still working at SQT. Yeah.
And Demon Bells.
That's right. Yeah, I still have that.
And starting Industry, we never saw each other, but the times we did, I remember shadowing you on your laptop. And I would watch you with Adobe Illustrator. And I was like, ooh, what's that? Show me. And you would teach me. And I would learn. And I liked it.
And then she'd immediately be like, why are you doing it that way? That's dumb.
Yeah. And then I started critiquing.
I feel a better way. Wow. I'm like, here you go. This is awesome. Like, go fix it.
But then I was like, wait a minute. I have something that I don't really know a lot about, but I can try it and experiment and see what happens. And this other thing where I know something can be done, but I'm not allowed to.
Yeah.
And then when the passion wasn't there either, it kind of just made sense to transition from nursing school to seeing what this could provide. And it was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah. And I think working, like, the way that we work together is a really good fit, because I'm good at like creating things and starting things, but she's really good at refining things. So I created all the systems and processes. Then she came in and she's like, well, this is good, but here's how we can make it better. And so it really, like, bringing her onto the team. Well, I guess we were the team at the time.
Yeah, it was us and our laptops.
It was just you two.
Yeah, it was just us. For actually years, it was like that. And it worked great because she was really good at the things that I wasn't very good at. And I was really good at the things that weren't her strong suit. So together, what we're able to do was provide like a really strong like package.
But within that, there was a transition of having our own lives. We saw each other when it was happy times, dinner, drinks, movie, the fun stuff. Now we're transitioning to the stressful times together too.
Yeah, working together.
With each other 24/7, literally.
All day.
That transition was quite an adjustment. I think that's something that is a lifelong journey to kind of figure out, because it'll constantly change as yourselves and the company changes. And you kind of have to find that balance between all of that.
Yeah, and balance is such a weird thing too, because I think people overcomplicate it, but I think people overcomplicate it because they view it as like it has to be this 50-50 evenly weighted scale. But what they don't realize is that it almost never looks like that. Like, our balance is probably 80-20 or 90-10, usually, for the most part in business, but that's the balance that works for us.
It's going to sound corny. I think of it like an ocean. There's ebbs and flows. Sometimes there's big waves and there's a swell, and other times there's low tide, then there's high tide. Then it's kind of consistent. It's like that. The ocean is still there. The ocean itself is consistent, but the waves and the ripples in between are what's going to flow and ebb. And absolutely. And that's kind of how it's like with the relationship in the business.
I have a question for you two, though.
Shoot.
You're dominant and you're dominant. I know that for a fact. How does that work? Like,
we butt heads.
Like, yeah,
we piss each other off every day. Every day.
But do you take that, like you guys said, with work and life and balance, right? Business and personal. Like, how do you guys deal with that? When you guys fight about business, do you know, like, this is just business that we're fighting about? And
we don't really fight about business.
Yeah.
Because I understand that she's really good at what she does. So if she wants to do something, I want to do something different. I usually look at it like, shit, man, maybe I'm missing something. Like, what does she catch that I'm not seeing? And one of the things that I think is both of our strengths is that we're both very self-aware. Mm-hmm. So when she's right about something or she disagrees, I know that we're on the same path. We want the same things long term. So if she wants to do something different in the short term decision, I always open up and look at it like, man, what did I miss? Why do you want to do something different than me if we're on the same path? And that's like been a really great place to start with that.
And I want to clarify dominant versus letting ego cloud your judgment.
Yeah.
Because while we're both very dominant and stubborn, I think is a more appropriate word for both of us, and hard-headed.
One of us more than the other.
I want to make sure I highlight the importance of the fact that we are very open to criticism from one another, and we don't take it personally. But that was not something that is black and white for us, or that happened overnight.
Yeah.
That actually took you coaching me a lot of that, and I think it helped with your previous career fields that you were in, that you were able to transfer that knowledge of how to critique in a constructive manner, in a way that can still preserve, the respect in a physical and personal relationship.
Oh, I was not good at that. You helped me get better at that.
Oh, I thought you were
That's
pretty
really
good.
what it is. Well, good. Well, you were also 22 when we met, so I was probably like
You trapped me.
way cooler. I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. But you're the same for me.
Yeah.
I always, because I do think about it with my relationship I have now with my girlfriend. I do think like, oh, what about if my wife did work for me in the future or anything like that? So do you guys promote that, or is it like you really have to be careful getting into it? Or
so the semantics actually are really important for me. So the phrase that you said there, work for me, technically in the hierarchical structure, he is above me, but I always say work with.
Yes.
And even
100%.
transcends down into our team, no matter what level they are, work with, because then you're in the same mission of a goal that's in mind. But working for, that inherently means that whatever your goals are, they're mine, but they're not. We work together to create those goals. Us, he and I, and our team. So it's always a with.
Yeah, we want the same thing. So I don't look at it like a hierarchy. I look at it like we're both pretty smart people and very aggressive with our goals. If we want the same thing and she wants to do it a different way, that's cool with me because I trust her. I'm like, but that's built up over time. Yeah, we've been together 8 years now, and that we've had a long time of us, building trust in each other that, hey, we're going to do the right thing. We're always going to be there. Like we want the same thing. It makes it a lot easier to just let go of things and not place too much, like not get wrapped up in the semantics of stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I had something else to say and I forgot.
That's why you got to write it down, babe.
No, because then I don't listen.
Did you listen to one of the podcasts on the way into work today?
No, I forgot to listen to episode 3. You told me
weird.
to, too.
She doesn't listen either. She doesn't
I have
listen.
a lot on my mind.
That's true, you do.
Let's talk about that then. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind?
Yeah, what are you working on right now?
Oh, specifically like my
Well, I mean,
projects?
like explain to people like what you do, because everybody I think has a wrong impression of what a CEO is. And we just
I have a funny story.
Yeah.
This is totally a tangent, but we had an interviewee come in for the brand management position. And the brand managers, as it sounds, manage the brands that we work with and produce for.
They interface with their clients. Yeah,
Got it.
And I wasn't on this interview, but I think it'd be hilarious if I was. The question was asked to the applicant, well, what's your 5-year plan? What's your goal? And he's like, oh, I want to be a CEO. And our team's like, okay, that's cool. You have big dreams and ambitions. That's great. We want all of us to have that. Why? Verbatim, this guy says, to sit on my ass and do nothing all day. End quote.
Oh, snap.
I'm like, wow, man. Yeah.
And when he walked out, I said, hi, nice to meet you. And he left. And then all the people that were in on the interview came and were like, Disney, you wouldn't believe what he said. You would have lost yourself if you were in on that.
So
It
you
was so
you were
funny.
CEO at the time?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's kind of just like,
I wish
that's what
I
you
knew.
do.
I wish I knew.
It's
Heck
like,
no, it's not what I do.
wow,
God.
that's crazy.
But that's what people think, though.
Yeah.
That you just do this, and I look at it as like decision making. But I think you have to have the right information and the right experiences in order to make good decisions.
I think to be an effective CEO, you should have a solid, not complete, solid understanding of what the functions are of every single person's role in the company that you are running. I have done fulfillment, not to the extent of what it is now, nor the system, but I have done customer service. I've done brand management and sales. I've done HR. I've done product research and development. I've done content creation.
Yeah, she's
done
been with me the
everything.
whole thing. She's gone through every piece of the company with me.
But that helps me be a better CEO
Yeah,
because
that's very
then when
good.
those people are struggling with something, whether it's personal or professional, and that's their role, I know the scope of their work. I know what ways I can come in to approach them and provide support. And
'Cause I agree with that 100%. Where when I started my business, I knew you always have to wear all the hats.
Yeah.
Because if you just hire someone like, oh, go take care of this, how the fuck do you know they're going to do a good job at it? Because you don't know the measurements. You don't know how you're going to measure it. If they're like, oh, they're doing great. You need to know how to do that first in order to be like, oh, okay, like you're doing a good job. How about if we do this? And I feel like to them, they'll respect you more that you are on the same level. I'm like, oh, like he puts a good creative input compared to it all just being on them. And if they mess up, then they're like, fuck, like. But like wearing all the hats is very important.
And the benefit to us being a little bit smaller size of a company is I can personally train a lot of the core people in our company so that as we grow, they're continuing to train them in their team in the way that I train them themselves. And one of the things that I love to do is something I call I do, we do, you do. So I show you how I do it. then we do it together. And then now I watch you do it. So I'm kind of watching every single step of the process, and I'm slowly easing off on the reins. And I think, and you too, like to have control, and it's hard to relinquish that. But if you can implement a system like I do, we do, you do, it naturally allows you to have that transition happen without you kind of freaking out. You know, it allows controllable small mistakes, mitigates the larger ones from potentially happening. You know, I'd rather have little oopsies than catastrophes, obviously. So I try to use that to my advantage with the size of company that we are now.
Yeah, you're really good at training, which is something that like when we're building the business, I like to focus on the big picture, like where we're going a year from now, 3 years from now, like who can we partner with, who can we best serve, like the machine that we built, who can, you know, who really needs this, who are our best clients that we can provide the most value to. And so that's what I like to focus on, but that leaves a huge gap in like the operations side. And that's why when she came up as a COO for 4 years, I think.
I think so, yeah.
COO for 4 years. But she was super reluctant to even take the COO position.
I didn't want it.
Yeah. She didn't think she was ready for it. And I was like, no, trust me, you're going to be great at it. And she was, but then she got comfortable in that role. Not comfortable, but you were confident in yourself in that role. And then when I proposed to her, like, hey, look, like it might make sense for you to take over a CEO position, she was really not opposed to it, but hesitant
nervous
with that as well. Yeah.
You know, back in high school when you have to write an essay on something, and then when the teacher doesn't give you the title or the subject, you're like, where the hell do I start? I don't know where to go. But if they give you that subject, that title, you're like, cool, I'm going to rock this.
Starts to spark, yeah.
That's what I attribute my role to, is like a captain and a first mate. I'm a great first mate. You say you want to sail from Africa to Europe, cool. I'll help you plot the best course. But if you're saying, we're in Africa, where do we go? I don't know. I don't know where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to do, or how I'm supposed to do it. But if you give me a little bit of guidance, I'll do it the best way possible. So that was the transition mentally for me, to go from having that support to being like, uh-oh, now what? But then I realized too, the great thing about being in business with your partner is Ryan's not going anywhere. He's still here. You know, there was a bit of a title change and a little bit of a scope change, but I still have my support.
I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do. I was like, if she's CEO, like, what do I do? I don't know.
Put you out of your own job.
I don't know what to do with my hands here. Yeah, that was a big, like, learning curve for me. Was letting go. It was totally fine with it. Like, you were obviously the best choice to take over that position. But then I was left with, you know, if I hand this off, what value can I bring to the company? Like, what can I do? And I'm used to being an operator in the company. So I'm used to like doing the work. But then when I was like, okay, I'll try to do the work, the systems and the things that we have in place are so much more advanced than we had before. I tried to do it and shit would just break and they get mad at me. Like, you didn't do this and you did this. And they're like, I was breaking the system. I'm like, I'm useless. What do I do? What am I doing here? So
many problems kept coming up because you kept trying to do the role that you aren't the best at. You're the best at that, the mind expanding things and the vision and figuring out what direction that the company is going to go. And the CEO does definitely take a part of that. But inherently, the way that Industry Threadworks is built, you are Industry Threadworks or synonymous.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out, though.
How scary is that? I feel like to you, because you started the company, right? And then she she agreed and said, like, I want to join this with you and do it together, right? Now then you like more and more the operator, and then you kind of we're at the point like, now what the fuck do I do? I don't really know. I'm messing things up. As the owner and creator, like, how does that feel? Like everyone that works with me, like they're killing it, and I don't really know what's happening anymore.
I had to find a new role for myself. Is what it was, and it actually helped us. We dove into the data and we figured out, okay, where are our clients coming from? Like, is it the advertising? Is it social? Like, how are we getting the clients that we're getting? And we looked at it, and over 99% of the clients came from me. So, and I look at the business like, if I left tomorrow and never showed up to work again, the business would be fine. Like, she handles it like a rock star. We have a great team. Like, everything is super solid. It would sustain and be totally fine, but it wouldn't grow. So knowing that and knowing where our clients come from, like, I just need to do more of me. I need to do more of social media. I need to go to more events. I need to have more conversations with people. I need to share all the information that I know and help other people as much as possible. And the more people that I help, there's a small percentage of those people that we're a really great fit for. And then it opens up conversations and we can get new clients. We can, you know, really add value to some of these companies. But I had to figure that out. It took me a couple months after she took over CEO. I was like, after I figured out I couldn't do the things that I was doing before, I was like, man, what do I do here?
Yeah.
But it was very much like as a man, especially like as a creator and founder, you were like, you kind of ousted from a position. I couldn't have my ego like, oh, I'm not giving it to her because I'm going to stay CEO, because that's not who we are. That's not how we operate. We're always trying to get better and grow. Mm-hmm. And it became super obvious that like I had to do something different and put her in this role. If we had a different team, like if we were doing tactical stuff and like we're going on raids and like SEAL stuff, obviously I'd be a better leader in that position than this. But for the roles that we have and the team that we have and the way systems are set up, she's a better leader for this team than me. I'm a little too harsh and rough around the edges sometimes.
I think the only way that I would be a good fit for that other company type you just mentioned is if you were in a role where you had to provide directions, because you are awful at providing.
Oh, wrong way, Ryan?
Wrong way, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm not. That's why I was never point man, dude. I suck at directions. Dude, if it wasn't for Google Maps, I would get lost going home.
That'd be the one thing I think I would be better than you at. But everything else, nope, I don't stand a chance.
Yeah. But it's also a really good point is that, like, if you have a specific type of team and type of personality in certain roles, you either have to adapt to that or you have to find somebody. Because that's where we ran into problems where, like, I was trying to, the team that we had is not soft, but they're softer than I'm used to dealing with, my personality, right? Mm-hmm. So what was happening was I would kind of grind. They were kind of getting annoyed with me. They were kind of getting frustrated with me. So I was thinking, okay, and if I'm going to get better at understanding people and understanding these types of personalities that aren't really my types of personalities I'm used to, I need to be more empathetic. I need to be more understanding. I need to be more, softer, whatever. And I tried to do that, and I think I went too far with it because I ended up letting off the reins too much. And by letting off the reins, man, I almost drove the whole thing into a fucking rock because, like, I was trying to be too lenient and too nice. And then I had to step on the brakes on that and then go back to kind of being a little, not harsh, but like a little more abrupt and like my normal personality, and to get back on track. And it worked. It was good. But through that process, I realized that, you can only, a tiger can only change its stripes so much before it's not a fucking tiger anymore. Mm-hmm. And I was, turning into some fucking zebra or something. Like, no, I got to stay a tiger. For me to be good at what I do, I need to stay sharp with that stuff. But through that realization was the understanding that, okay, I'm not a good fit for the team that we have in this really close connected leadership position, but who else is? Thankfully, I'm married to her. And I was like, babe, you got this.
Yeah, that's super cool. I feel like when you're going through certain things at work and then you're going through certain things at work, like being able to understand your guys' same struggle, right? Like your wife or your husband, whatever, they have different jobs usually. They don't understand what you're really going through. But you guys know exactly what you guys are going through. So, like, how much does that help too?
It helps a lot, but I will say coming home, talking about work when you're both having the same day at work, there's not a lot to talk about with how work was.
Yeah.
So
nothing's new. We've both been through it all day.
It's like, oh yeah, that happened. Oh, you were there. Yep. So we kind of have to find other things to talk about. And that's where it kind of came to be finding out what our hobbies are, because we realized that we just work all the time and we love our work, and I'm very fortunate and passionate about it. But it can't be the only thing.
Yeah.
So then you started getting into Thai boxing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm into horseback riding now. And now we have a couple of different things to talk about when we come home. And we're talking about things that are supporting one another's passions, not just the business. So it is something that we do work on, that I think all couples who are in business together need to constantly work on, is separating personal from business. Mm-hmm. Because we did it for a while and it was fine, but it was not what I wanted to have it be like for my entire life.
Yeah, it got boring. Because like there's nothing new and nothing different. And it was getting stale. We're like, dude, that's not who we are. It's not how we want to both live. But another aspect of that I think was really important, at least from my perspective, was understanding what each other's love languages are. So for instance, like we have a ritual now, I guess call it a ritual. I don't know, whatever you call it. It's the thing we do every day. But so we'll come home from work maybe talk about it a little bit, and then we'll have dinner. And we usually have dinner and we watch a show, no matter what it is. Like usually a 45 an hour minute episode, and we don't talk about work during that time. It's kind of like our reset and time for us to disconnect, and we sit next to each other, and like I'll hold her hand or put my hand on her leg. And for us, that's like a reconnect time where we're kind of letting the workday go. We're focusing on each other. We're spending time with each other. And that, like having that one thing has really helped separate work from life, you know?
I don't think it'd be as big of an issue if we weren't working together, but always being in an on executionary mode all the time. And there's a lot of stress involved. To have something that just kind of recenters you and focuses just on a relationship. Yes, it's television. There's no actual like conversation or anything, but just having that time to slow down and hold each other's hands, it's centering. I don't know any other way to put it, you know, and you need to remember that you guys marry one another, people in a relationship, because of why you love one another. I'm losing my point here.
That's fine. No, I think.
Yeah, no, I like the right that you're going, where I feel like sometimes the relationship can just merge business and personal. And I feel like that's when things maybe start to happen, like not the best thing. So it's kind of like, that's an interesting thing too.
It's tough when they get muddied together, because then when there's an argument, is it an argument as a business, as the owner to the CEO, or as a husband to a wife?
Yeah.
How do you separate those two? So having that separation of our television allows that separation mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, I remember we would have conversations because we bicker like
Bicker's
every
a good
day in
word
the
for it.
office. Yeah, we piss each other off. We get frustrated with each other. We love each other, but we're also like, okay, you're fucking really annoying right now, you know? So, but what helped, we've actually had conversations where like I wanted her to do things one way and she wanted to do them another way. And I would have to tell her like, look, babe, this is not me, your husband, telling you this. This is me, the owner of the company, telling you this is the fucking way we need to do it, you know? But we haven't had that conversation in a long time. But there was a few times like maybe a year ago where that popped up.
That was like really prevalent for like a solid like 6 months.
Yeah.
Where because the arguments would happen at home too, which is supposed to be the personal time, the relationship time. But then the work stuff comes home because inherently it's a part of your home. So then how do you separate taking that personally? So it took a lot, I think, honestly, just repetition and a framing of my mindset saying, he's not saying this to be an asshole. He's not being a mean husband. He has a literal point. If I was not married to him and he was just my boss only, it was so clear. Yeah. And that was on me.
But it was getting muddy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same with you too. Hey,
I was gonna say,
you are not. I am not the only guilty one in this scenario.
Yeah, but I mean, we worked it out now to where the process and the system and the like emotional systems that we have in place now are really good. But dude, it definitely took some rooting around. We had to break a few eggs to make an omelet for sure.
The number one thing that helped me is remembering the common goal.
Yeah.
Because you have a common goal in marriage, it's the marriage. You're in a healthy relationship. A common goal in business is the success of the business. So whatever the problem is, whether it is in your relationship or it is in your business, remember what the common goal is and focus on that. And when you two focus on a positive outcome, guess what tends to happen? A positive outcome. But if you focus on, oh, he this and they that, that's negative. What's going to happen? A negative outcome. So even when it becomes money, as long as you focus on whatever that goal is, I think that can also help push through that time, because it is a difficult time. There was times where I'm like, this isn't worth it. I made a mistake. I should have stayed in nursing school. Why did I think I'm going to go work with my husband? No one does that. It's so hard. I see it now. I feel like I duped myself into believing it. No, not the case at all. I let it get muddied and I forgot the common goal.
But how did you remember about the common goal? Like, did you talk to other people when you felt like you couldn't talk to Ryan?
That's a good question.
You know, like.
I think during that time, when was that? I want to say a couple times it would be me checking myself, because I know that I can get upset at things rather quickly. And then I think it's normal for me and a lot of people to assume the worst case scenario so that you can prepare yourself for it. But I didn't like that, because then I got negative, I got angry, and I got irritable. So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be in this mindset. I want to think positively. I want to think in abundance. I want to think of things that are good. And it kind of just took me checking myself, as well as being a part of a lot of these groups that you started joining and networking with. And we not only learned about different business models and different people, but they're partners. Sometimes they were involved in the business and sometimes they weren't. Sometimes they were considering it, but they are nervous about it because there's not a lot of people that do it. And I don't think that's actually the problem. I think the problem is that it's not being talked about as much. I think it's more prevalent than we think, because the more that we meet different people, the more I'm seeing it's not as rare to have two people who are together building a business together. It's a lot more common than I thought.
And if you have a really good relationship, I mean, it makes sense to build something together. Because ultimately, if you're married, you're building something together anyway, right? But I think a huge part of what helped us kind of step out of that day-to-day contention of like these small decisions was goal setting. Like, we set a really big goal. So it makes it so much easier to trust her. Because I'm like, okay, I know we want to go this direction. So if we have a fork in the road, I don't really care if we go left or right. You want to go left? I want to go right? Cool, let's go left. No big deal. Because I know you want to get the same way. You want to go the same direction I want to go. But without that huge goal, like, it makes all the smaller decisions seem so much bigger. Because you're like, oh, we got to go right. She's like, no, we got to go left. We're going the same way. It doesn't matter.
If there's one thing that should be written down from this episode, that reminds me of a quote that I said quite a few years back, and it comes up so frequently. It's, be stubborn about your goals, be flexible about your methods. It's going to change along the way. But if you keep that goal in mind and something kind of sets you off, bounce back, get back on your path, and keep moving forward, honestly.
Yeah. And like, reward, like the last episode we talked about the Lambo, like, you got to reward yourself as well. So like, she wants to buy a horse. She's been on this horse kick for months, and I literally could not give less of a fuck about, like, I could not physically care less about
I don't care about cars. So
like, as long as the horse is taken care of and it's good, it's happy, I don't care. I don't need to go pet it. I don't care about it. But I understand how important that is to her. So, but for me, like, that K5 that I have, like 73 Blazer, she hates that piece of shit.
I hate it.
She doesn't care about my cars. She doesn't care about any of this stuff. But I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, I don't. So when she talks to me about horses, I'll just tell her about, hey, you know that 454 we have in that thing is mated to a TH400 transmission. She's like, oh my God, shut up.
I'm like, what? Why are you bothering telling me about this? That's exactly how he feels. But the important thing is that we support one another in the things that we enjoy.
And we created a goal out of it. So she wants to buy a horse, and like, I always thought they're super, like, stupid expensive, and they're kind of expensive.
They can be, but
they're
that's...
like, the one we want to get is cheaper than most cars, you know, even with like I guess the monthly maintenance is a little more expensive, but it's not as it's not as outlandish as I thought it was. It's cheaper than like the Lambo we're talking about. So I was like, all right, like, she wants to buy a horse. Like, that's a great goal for her. I don't personally care about it, but I care about her happiness. Yeah. So if this makes her happy, how can we set a goal for ourselves that's going to get her what she wants? She's like, okay, by June, I want to get a horse. I'm like, okay, cool. Awesome. How much does a horse cost? How much money do we need to pull out of the business to do that? So how big do we need to have the business by June in order for us to safely do that? But also, if we build the business on our common goal to build the business big enough where she can pull that money out to get a horse, that also means I can pull money out to fix up the K5, to get the wheelies right, like, to do all. That's how it works, babe.
Debatable.
That's how it works. You already said we're done. It's on air now.
If you're going to compare the horse to the Lambo, my horse I'll have for 20 to 30 years. Will you have that Lambo for 20 to 30 years?
Yeah, but that's 640 horsepower compared to one. Way better deal. Way better deal. The horsepower for dollar ratio is extremely in the Lamborghini's favor. It's math, baby. Can't argue with that.
I'm death staring for those of you who are not watching.
Yeah, for audio. Yeah, staring daggers, man.
Where do you get the horse? Where is this horse? Rancho Santa Fe?
There's two. That's where the barn I go to is at, but the one I'm looking at is up in Temecula.
Oh,
we can get them anywhere. You even get them imported, but I'm still kind of new, so I don't have the skill set to be able to just fly something over from Germany and know that I'm going to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
So having proximity from another owner who has trained them, that I can come and visit and see if it'll work out, that's where it kind of comes into play.
But dude, I'm so glad that she found something that she loves that much, because now if we can have the business create that freedom for her to do that, that's amazing, you know? Because without that, like, why are we working so hard? So I know what it takes for me to reward myself, but I'm so thankful that she found something that she wants to do, that we're in a position that we could, you know, actually work towards. So
and also in terms of motivating the team, if the team can see that the owners are achieving their goals, that the business can support them in their goals too. It's really important, because if you're working for a company and the owner is driving around in a beat up Honda Civic, where are your dreams going to fit into that? If they aren't even driving something that is, something that's a goal for them, how do your goals fit inside of their goals? They don't, they can't. So it's important, I think, for the vision of our team to see and think big, and think the way that we do when they see, wow, Ryan's getting a Lambo, Dizzy's getting a horse. What can I get?
Yeah.
Let me start figuring out what my passion is, because look what my passion did for the business and my mindset towards it.
You got to show them the dreams can be achieved, right? And if we build a big enough company, then we can have our team's dreams be achieved under our umbrella. So that's amazing. It takes a different mind shift though. But like I said, when we talked about the last episode too, is that like you got to reward yourself, but also you have to make sure everyone else on the team is taken care of first. Like making sure they're making the kind of money that they feel they deserve, and then you can step into like rewarding yourself a little bit. It is a little bit of a balance, but I'm just glad that we're on the same page with all this stuff, because if we weren't, dude, I don't know how we do anything.
It's a constant effort that has a lot of benefits that are, I feel, easy to reap as long as you're consistent and authentic in the efforts you put forth.
Yeah, it is a lot of work though, man. But I think it's also like any business partnership, you have to be very clear with the roles and responsibilities so you don't step on each other's toes.
Yeah.
I think that was where...
where you're putting your fingers in where they don't belong.
Yeah, but that's where a lot of our arguments would come from before, where I want to do something one way and she wants to do another, was that I just hadn't like let off the reins with it. And I just had to be like, look, you know what? There are certain things that if I want to do something one way and she wants to do something another way, it's either one of two things. Like either she knows something that I don't and I need to learn what that is, or I haven't shown her what everything that I'm seeing. So I need to tell her and show her so that she's aligned with where I want to go, because we're both pretty smart people and we're both pretty good at what we do. So if we want to go separate ways, one of us is missing a piece of information.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I had a good point. It's a compliment. It's rare, dude. Normally she just complains about everything.
You also had a horse analogy in there.
I didn't mess it up, did I?
No.
All right.
I was proud of you.
All right, good. Well, that's to do with horsepower. I got it.
Oh my
Horses. Singular horses, no good. It's not my jam, baby.
I want to go into real quick of, you had a vision when you started Industry. Did you see his vision when you kind of got on board with it?
Good question.
Or were you not sure?
No.
Not knowing, but now you guys have the same goal. So I'm curious about like when that transition was where you're like kind of resenting the business and then you started working together, and then I was like, oh, I see where this is really going.
Resenting the business was when we both had such busy schedules.
Yeah.
And there were things to me that you had to do and things that you were choosing to do. He had to go to Coronado to do his 9-to-5 job. He had to take care of his customers on Demon Bells because that was like a legitimate company. Mind you, at this time, Industry Threadworks was kind of like a concept he was toying with, right? And I had to go to nursing school. I had to go to my clinicals, and I had to go to the restaurant. So going to the print shop was not a thing that I felt he needed to do. He chose to do it. So I felt like he was choosing the print shop over me. That's where the resentment came in. There's only so much time that I have an opportunity to spend with him, and he's choosing not to. It was then when I was like, I'm going to come with you to the print shop. I want to see what you're doing. I got nosy. I got jealous.
But I was like, good. Come check it out.
But I channeled it for a good reason. So then I kind of saw everything, and I'm like, this place is weird. It's like all these machines and rows of boxes of who knows what. And it was such a different environment for me than from what I've seen him in before. But yeah, it took me being a little nosy and getting a little jealous, and then asserting myself, saying, I'm feeling this way. Let's figure this out. And that's when he started teaching me and kind of showing me what he's doing. And then I just took a natural interest into it, and kind of went from there. But in terms of seeing the vision of the company,
I don't know if I saw the vision of the company back then either, though.
I saw it as like a hobby or like a side business.
Yeah, I mean, because that was at the time before I bought the Lambo. And like we talked about in the last one, that really helped me understand how much further there is to go and how big things can really get. Because before that, I didn't really have a vision for it. I was like, this might be cool or something like a business, but I had no idea what it would look like, 10 years down the road or anything. So I don't think she saw the vision because I didn't see the vision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just kind of cruising along. But it was going to these entrepreneurship groups, especially Arete Syndicate at that time,
probably.
was a huge bump for me. Really opened my eyes up to like, oh my God, there's a whole other world out there I didn't even think about. And that helped me then craft and create this vision for the company, because I could see other people operating in you know, companies that size. I'm like, oh, that's what that looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a whole different world.
Different levels.
Yeah.
I want to kind of talk about Arete.
Yeah.
And in regards to being in business with your partner and trust, decision making, because finances become really sticky
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you work together. Because you think anytime that person spends the money, they're taking your money away. When you wanted to join Arete, do you remember how you asked me and told me about it? Number one, I'll remind you, via text message. How much was it to join?
50 grand
50 grand.
cash.
And it sounded like some like Ponzi scheme or something where like, oh, and I have to send it in 24 hours. I have to wire it.
She's like, what are you talking about,
And he's
bro?
like, I watched this promo video, and the promo video, it built up like the ante and it seemed cool, but it didn't really tell you anything. So I'm like, I don't know what this is. You have to do it within 24 hours. It's 50K and you're asking me via text message.
Yeah.
But you've always been consistent in who you are and what efforts that you choose to put forth. So even though that was via text message and it was a lot of money and there wasn't a lot to go off of, I knew it was something that you were going to be passionate about, that you were going to find a way to invest in, whether it was profitability or access to knowledge or networking. And even though it was via text, he still asked me. He still respected my input. So with working together, trust has to be a huge thing. You have to lean on one another and you have to forgive one another because you're going to make mistakes. You cannot go hard on someone for making a mistake with the business personally. You have to separate that, right? But I think the trust with that is critical for big decisions and small decisions.
Yeah, it takes time to build trust, obviously. But I think also, too, leaving room for trust building is huge. Like giving people the opportunity to make decisions, giving them options and telling them what you want and allowing them to show you that they are trustworthy over time is I mean, that's how you build trust is by having the opportunity to make decisions like that.
And then good communication also.
Yeah, because we're both, I think, was it ENTJA or something like that?
The Myers-Briggs personality test, we are ENTJA.
Which they're both, it's rare for dudes, but it's like exceptionally rare for a woman to be that. Because we're both the exact same thing. That's why we get along with all this stuff. That's also why we argue about the same shit.
The ENTJ is already kind of rare, but the ENTJ, and there's like a subcategory of A is what makes it like really rare. You know what's kind of interesting too is that we are both the same personality. And it's not even like a yin and a yang, it's a yin and a yin.
Yeah.
But it works. It's so strange.
That's like the first thing I asked you guys, because like, what would you say? You said more stubborn is a better word than
hard-headed,
dominant.
stubborn,
Yeah. That, because I talk with you a lot, right? And I understand like just who you are and strong-headed. And you come back with that to him. Like when you guys talk, I'm like, oh damn, like no one just takes it here. Like you guys go back and forth. So you guys just work really well together.
We hold each other accountable too. So I don't want him to let me get away with some bullshit excuse. And that doesn't mean that he gets bullshit excuses either. So we also have a little bit of fun bantering in between to kind of balance it out because we know we irritate one another.
Yeah.
So now we kind of do it exaggeratingly just to poke fun, not take life too seriously because it's too easy to. And that's another thing that happened when we only focused on the business. I think more couples should venture into at least trying working together out, even if it's in a small capacity. Maybe, a girl has a clothing brand and her husband, boyfriend, or her girlfriend, wife are an artist and they like to do graphic design on Procreate or Adobe Illustrator. You don't necessarily have to have number one and number two in the company working together. You can still be a part of the company, contribute it, be a part of the vision. Marketing, even that could be a huge asset. I know one of our friends, Justin Wegner, and his wife Lindsay. She's doing all the marketing and
she's crushing it on that too.
Yeah. And I think that was a big step for them from what Justin was telling us, a couple weeks ago. But obviously, it's paying off.
Well, it's interesting with that too. In that scenario, Lindsay was getting frustrated with their advertising team that they were hiring or that they were paid to do advertising. So she just started doing it herself. and getting better results. But she was like, oh man, I suck at this. I still want to outsource it. I still want to have somebody else do it, because she didn't believe that she was doing good. So it took Matt Ganzak at the last event actually analyzing her stuff and looking at it and being like, and telling her, and Matt Ganzak is like world class at what he does at marketing and advertising, and him telling her like, no, this is really good. Like, you did a great job setting this up. I couldn't have done a better job setting it up.
Wow.
And so for her, she's like, oh shit, okay, I am doing well. I can contribute to this. I think that's a powerful perspective, man. When, like, once you realize that, you know, you're better than you think in a lot of these things.
And she's going to care more about the success of the ad campaigns and the company more than any agency will.
Yep.
Hands down.
Yeah. Nobody gives a shit about your stuff like you.
Yes. So that's kind of an inherent trust also that can kind of be built into the partnership with business is your significant other.
I think because there's positive and negative, right? So I think for us, like, we like some of the same things, and that's good. But also, like, I like cars and she likes horses. There's not a whole lot of carryover with that. But one of the things that can bring people closer is what you hate.
Yeah, I knew where you're going with this.
Yes. Like, we both hate inefficiency. So, like, and we both hate slow drivers.
Bad drivers.
So, like, yeah, like when I'm, you know, if there's somebody doing like 60 in the fast lane and I whip around them, I'm like fucking pissed off, and she's yelling, fuck you.
No,
she's like yelling over me. I'm like, yeah, babe, that's it. That's it. Fuck that person, you know? So having like hating something or being annoyed by something or having something negative that you both just are completely against can sometimes be a great way to bring things together. And for us, it comes down to inefficiency. So we both hate inefficiency. So that's why we're both really focused on the systems and the processes that we have here at Industry, because it's entirely built on efficiency. Because we have such low margin and high volume that if we're not efficient, we're not making any money. So our whole thing is built on efficiency.
And that's why the involvement in training with our team at the size we are is so critical.
Yeah, well, that's why you're the right person for the role, baby.
You're a little difficult to get along with when you teach.
Me? I'm a fucking saint.
No, you like click and move shit around, and you don't say what you're doing to move the shit around.
Because I think it's obvious. You're
and
looking
then your
at
big
it.
like monkey hands are like on the keyboard, and I can't see what you're fucking typing. And then you're like, "Okay, got it." I'm like, "No."
Well, see, you should already know. You should already know.
I should just know.
You should.
I should know all the keyboard shortcuts and all the programs.
Yes.
Yeah, that's realistic.
This is daily.
I want to know something now. What's the biggest mess up Disney's done? And you're like, oh man, and vice versa. Or you're like, damn.
Ooh, that's a good question.
People are wondering.
I can't think of anything that you've really messed up that's been like noteworthy.
Perfect.
Well, I won't go that far.
Biggest thing that you've messed up?
I know what it is.
You do?
Yeah. Not paying attention to our dipshit fucking CFO and what he was doing.
That was a big one.
Yeah. That was a big one.
Yeah, it took me doing a basic P&L of our overhead and our gross revenue and realizing our CFO didn't even count in rent for the building that we were renting for our warehouse.
So he was basically just making up all the fucking numbers, dude, because he was just too stupid to actually understand them. But I was an idiot because I'm like, this is when I was trying to be like super Mr. Nice Guy and empathetic. I'm like, no, you got it. I'll be hands off. You just let me know. Do we have money to do this? Do we have money to hire this person? He's like, yeah, we got it. Turns out we did not fucking
It took time for me because I audit all of the expenses. And so it took time for me to pay a bill. That was $180,000. And I'm like, okay, yeah, everything like looks good in the bill. And then I go and I look at our bank account and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, why do we have no fucking money?
Why can I not pay this bill? And then I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't right because our numbers should be way higher. So I inspected what I expected our CFO to do and realized he was not doing the job appropriately. To leave out your biggest overhead expenses apart from employees is the buildings that you're occupying is a massive mistake in my book.
We thought we were profitable, and then it turns out we were losing like $20,000 to $30,000 a month for a long time. Jeez. And by the time we figured it out, we're like, oh my God, dude, like we're almost completely fucked. But and we should probably do podcasts on the whole thing because that was like, there's a lot that went into it and a lot of things I learned. But also too, one of the things I learned about her was during that time, before I knew how to fix it or what to do, when I just knew there was a problem, that was like the hardest 2 weeks of entrepreneurship in 15 years that I've been through.
Wow.
Because I was staying up till 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, how what the fuck am I going to do? How am I going to fix this? Like, what are options? I don't know how we're going to pull out of this. And her just being by my side and being like, hey, you know what? I don't know either, but we're going to figure it out together. I was like, fuck, dude. Like, just having somebody in the corner who has your back, who's not like, oh, I don't know, or they don't care or whatever. She's 100% by my side, on board with fixing it. I'm like, dude, that meant so much to me.
So imagine this. Imagine I wasn't in business with you, and I'm in my nursing career. I have my own separate thing.
Yeah.
And you're our main source of revenue, because honestly, between the two, right?
Dude, I would have felt so lonely.
I would have been massively angry with you.
Yeah.
I would have said, how could you? That is so stupid. We could go bankrupt. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Who am I married to?
And
how am I supposed to trust you?
That would be legitimate too, you know?
Those thoughts could still be legitimate, but because we're together and I have the frame of reference and I'm not resenting the situation, and I see the mistakes that we both make as humans and how we work together and come to find solutions to these issues, it didn't even cross my mind. It was, this sucks. We're going to figure it out. I don't know how or when, but we're going to.
Yeah. It was about, what, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, something like that?
Last year?
Yeah.
A year ago?
No, a little longer than that, but it was, yeah, that was a tough spot, man. So that's definitely the biggest mistake that I made.
The majority of the solutions too came from you joining a lot of networking groups.
Yeah.
And a lot of those networking groups I wasn't a part of because I was not the entrepreneur, Ryan was, but I still attended and I came to the +1 events whenever I could so I can meet the people in the group and their significant others. And those were the people that were there to be with, to help us figure out creative approaches to this massive problem we're dealing with.
Yeah.
We had a network there as well. I think everyone who has a business needs to have some sort of a social networking group, not social media, an in-person physical group that you go and talk to people with and problem solve.
People you can trust and help out. So like in that instance, once we figured out what we needed to do, we're like, okay, this is going to take us probably 6 to 9 months for us to pull up out of this nosedive and correct course to where we're going to be good. But because our payment cycles are so long, like, 1 to 3 months sometimes, we're like, shit, by the time we figured it out, we had no money left. So we're like, dude, how do we do this? So my buddy, Jonathan Federa, I talked with him and he's really good at lending, and he secured us an SBA loan for $500,000 that was like fantastic rates. I was like, dude, you saved our ass. I don't know, because what we were doing was correct and how we were going to fix it, but we didn't have the capital to bridge, the 3 months to 6 months to where things were going to be okay. And I had no idea what the hell we were going to do.
Like we had the solution over time that, happened here, 9 months down the road, we're good. But how do we cover everything in between? Because it'd be a slow progression, but we need to get there now and then allow them to meet in the middle later.
But knowing Jonathan and having a conversation with him, you're like, dude, this is my problem. Like, you're good at finance. Like, what are the options? And him being like, hey, here's what you do. Here's how you do the whole thing. I was like, oh my God, it's such a huge, huge asset. And he's just a friend, you know what I mean? Like, these are just people that we know and hang out with that are able to solve like these really big, complex problems. So that's why I think the value of the networking group is immense, because it makes you feel not alone, which is nice. But also it helps you understand that we're all facing similar problems. And most times, because we all face similar problems, most entrepreneurs end up with similar solutions. So I was able to take some of the solutions that he had applied and have him help me apply them in my business. And dude, it totally saved our ass.
I mean, think about it. That's literally, probably a good majority of his client base is someone going through a financial time that needs to bridge a gap.
Yeah.
So for him, he's like, oh, no brainer. And for us, we're like, oh my God, the world is ending.
Yeah.
So to be able to go from, oh my God, the world is ending to no brainer.
Yeah.
That's the power of your social network.
Yeah.
Well, we're working on it, man.
How did I mess up?
What?
How did I mess up?
You didn't. I don't think you did mess up.
You sure?
No, I think you did good.
It's my first podcast ever.
That's right. It is. Yeah. Case of beer.
Tequila.
Did I ever tell you that? Oh, yeah. So on the SEAL team's like, first time you do anything, your first fast rope, case of beer. First time jumping out of a helicopter, case of beer. And then it turns into, first time jumping out of a helicopter on a Tuesday in November, case of beer. So you just end up you're just always buying people beer. Just turns into this running joke. So yeah. All right. Well, awesome, baby. You want to sign us off?
How do I do that?
Well, maybe if you'd listen to one of the episodes, you know how to do it, huh?
It's Ryan. It's Kota.
Oh, that's fine.
All right, good. All right, cool. Well, thanks for listening. This is episode 8. I'm not sure what date this will be out, but yeah, let us know in the comments and what you guys would like to hear. Shoot us a DM or an email, and we're doing this to help you guys solve some of the same problems that we're all going through. So keep us posted. Let us know what you guys are dealing with, and we're here to help. Shake and bake. Y'all can do that?
Oh, that shit.
Yeah.
I heard it.
Come on.
Oh, my God.
Shake and bake.
Wait, you left me hanging.